much, but I will just briefly give us an idea of what to expect this year for the hurricane season as we approach the third month. So far, predictions have in the early part of the season was expected to be 20 plus storms, 11 of which we anticipate to become hurricanes. And the average is usually 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. And if you realize we have 20 names on forecast. And that shows us that we are expecting an above normal season. Now this year, about 25 agencies submitted forecasts and are all saying that it's expected to be an active year. So based on that, we should be paying attention to what is likely to come. And this is mainly because of the driving factors that you probably heard about. And this is the sea surface temperatures rather, which acts as a fuel, and the La Nina effect, which actually provides an environment that is more stable for the production of or the development of storms. Now, all these factors are influenced by climate change, and that means we should be expecting more storms. We also see sea level rising due to climate change, and also if we are paying attention recently, you'll see that we have record-breaking global temperatures all the time. It's like a new phenomenon now. Now, what has happened so far in the Virgin Islands? We have seen where we have experienced 3 floods, 2 in the pre-season and 1 just at the start of the season. And also, on a global standpoint, we have seen where we've had 3 named systems already, one of which has been a Category 5 hurricane, and that was Beryl. And that particular storm actually had caused some havoc in our region and even in the US. So that gives us an idea of possibly what we can expect. And what was unique about Beryl is the timing in which it happened and the location. And another thing that we will have to pay attention to this season is the term rapid intensification. Right? That means a storm could develop today and get to a really big storm in a very short time. What does that mean? A less lead time to prepare for such system. Also, what has been happening is the excessive heat conditions. So I've been looking at the temperatures and the feel-like temperatures for the last month, and all of them were averaging up, every day is averaging above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, feel-like temperature. And that is something for us to be concerned about. Now, what to expect going further down in the season? Now we're approaching the 3rd month. Usually this is where we start heading towards the peak. So we should expect more storms as a result of the driving factors that was mentioned, because we expect the La Nina effect to really peak out in the peak of the season. So when we have these two factors that will work together, we expect more storms to be forming in that period of time. Another thing to be concerned about, or what we should pay attention to, is the tracking of these storms. This year, the tracking of these storms will be tending to move either through the Caribbean or closer to us in the territory. Just like how we saw with Beryl, that went through the Caribbean. We could possibly see, based on the steering currents and the steering pattern, we could even see storms tracking through the territory. It's a possibility. Also, as I mentioned before, rapid intensification. I will stress that because, yes, we will see storms coming across the coast. It may not even be a storm coming across the coast. We might see a wave and hey, nothing happening. Tomorrow, we see a storm, and then the next day we see a big hurricane. Saying that to say this, we just should be mindful of what's happening in our environment, especially in the coming months, this month and September. And we could actually start seeing signs of this development in the Atlantic as early as the 2nd week of this month. Something to bear in mind. And before I close up, it might not just be one storm that we'll be focusing on at a time. Think about last year when we had Tammy and Rena. We weren't sure what was happening or if we were going to get both. So if we're thinking this year of this year being, last year was supposed to be like an average year or a near normal, and that turned out to be an above average year. So if this year, when every forecasting agency is predicting a high and active season, it's possible that we could have 2 storms monitoring heading to the territory or in and around the territory, or we might have 1 pass or 2 coming. We don't know. We're just saying that this is a possibility of what we can expect. So far we have 3 names. So based on the average name system, for this year, we're looking for at least 20 more name systems. So let us be mindful that that's what we could expect. And what's happening now? Just yesterday and the day before, we had a very strong tropical wave passing through. One of the first that has actually affected us this year. And we see where we had an average of, fortunately I don't think we had much of a flooding event, but we saw where we had like about 1.5 inches of rainfall. So bear in mind that this wave that just passed us, we got spared because they're anticipating that this will be the next name system then. So in closing, I'll say, bear in mind that climate change is real, and while we prepare for this season, let us prepare for beyond this season as well. Things we used to do then, we have to make changes as we go along for the next 10 years to come. And I will stress again, climate change is a real thing. It's no longer a myth. I will hand over now to my director, Mr. Penn.
Good afternoon. As Andrew rightfully highlighted, we're going into a very impactful part of the hurricane season, so let us be ready. In terms of my presentation today, I'll try and be as brief as possible, as I know time is very limited, but I'll just concentrate on some key points in terms of preparation. One of the things I'd like to highlight to individuals is the information that you get in terms of preparing for the upcoming events. We know that there's a lot of information out there via social media and various forums. However, the information that is coming out from the key sources should be your primary source of information in terms of making decisions. Some of those source information will come from the National Hurricane Center. Despite seeing the various pieces of information that comes out on a daily basis, the National Hurricane Center is the only hurricane forecasting agency. All of the meteorological offices collaborate and partner with the National Hurricane Center to provide the information that they share with us. In addition to that, in terms of the local information for the territory, we have the Antigua and Barbuda Meteorological Service. And some might ask, why is Antigua still forecasting for those environments? However, that is something that has been in place for quite some time, since 1973, when the Virgin Islands was a part of the whole sub-regional mechanism. I know the government is doing its best now to move into developing our own meteorological office. It will take some time, but they're trying to do their best to move to that particular avenue. Now, in terms of preparing yourselves, or even your businesses, using this information, there are bits and pieces that the Department of Disaster Management will typically put out. And one of those things is an information statement. The information statement, what we usually highlight the process, that doesn't mean necessarily that something is going to impact us, but it best shows that the system, that something is close to our area and is being monitored. And usually that's the time for individuals to speak with, whether from a personal perspective or business perspective, to begin looking at their plans, ensuring that all persons are aware of what these plans actually entail. And that being from your household perspective, that's from the kids, it's up to the parents, even if your neighbor is a part of that plan within the community as well. From a business perspective, it's very important that your staff actually knows what's in the plan and what needs to be done. Typically, a lot of times what happens is we have plans, but the people who need to know these plans don't ever see them. So, in addition to that, the terminology of the information that you receive, you know there's a lot of different terminologies that we may not understand, hurricane watch, hurricane warning. It's very important that you seek to understand what these terminologies mean as they have time frames in them. A hurricane watch may mean that you have 48 hours before the impact of tropical storm force winds. Usually that's given to give you enough time safely to do something before you start to feel these conditions. While a hurricane warning may mean you only have 36 hours. Time is a lot less. So it's very important to know what the terminologies actually are. Another important thing in terms of your preparedness is training. Believe it or not, if you're preparing, training is very essential. One of the things that we usually indicate to persons, the Red Cross does offer first aid training, and it would be very important to get access to that particular type of training, because you may never know what you may need to do in the event you're impacted by a hurricane. Another training that we do as well is community emergency response training. In that training entails having community emergency response teams. What they typically will be trained in is in basic fire suppression, basic first aid, basic bandaging, and how to lift and move a person. And that training is provided by us in conjunction with the Red Cross. So either training can go hand in hand to take persons along a pretty long way. One of the things that came out of Burma, I know everyone is familiar with, is the loss of communications. And we know for some time the territory did suffer an extreme outage in terms of comms. And what you might be able to do to ensure that we have these type of communications. There's satellite phones, and there's also radio communications. But we know for a wider cross section, satellite phones do incur high charges and become very expensive. There's various levels of SATCOMs that can be used. There's something called a chatty people, which also works via satellite. It's more text-based, but the rates are a lot cheaper and the subscriptions are also cheaper. We know that there are technologies like Starlink and they are like, however, at this given time, they're still not licensed to operate within the Virgin Islands. Hopefully that's something that we may have access to in the future. In terms of, from the government perspective, this was a question that was asked of me, and a very good question as well. If all else were to fail, what it is that we would use. And one of the things that coming out of the program was purchasing a very small aperture terminal system, which is also a satellite, but it just allows us to have a greater capacity of bandwidth with a lot more users being able to access the building. Another question that I was asked here, which was very good in terms of our building at McNamara. Being that where we're located now, if that's where we were still in operation, unfortunately, the building is still not ready. Alternative site is to go back between the hospital annex and the 911 center until that particular unit is actually completed. I'll just close by mentioning one other preparedness item that you should have is grab and go kit, in particular as much solar type stuff that you have in there, as well as your medication. One of the things coming out from Burma was the fact that there were persons that needed specialized medicine. Synchronized was available in the territory, and it wasn't. It'll be key now to seek out whether the hospital or the different service providers that provide health care, if you require special medication or medical treatment, to see if they have any means of being able to provide that. And I'd just like to say, on my final note again, don't forget the vulnerable population. If you can assist, if you can help them, please do so. Again, thank you for having me this afternoon, and I hope your presentation is well received.
questions for the team from DDM? To return to Shima.
Hi, just a quick question. For those who have to get extra medication in case of anything, is NHI willing to work with them to defer the cost? Because I know you can only get medication 1 month at a time.
In terms of that, I'll be honest with you, I can't really say exactly. I know during they did make provisions for it, but I can't say that was only something that was one time.
Well, on that topic, is there any assistance that DDM could provide? Perhaps sending NHI a notice that as part of hurricane preparedness, customers or citizens might seek to get an additional month of, so that it's a policy thing that as part of our hurricane preparedness, we're entitled to an extra month during this season.
We can. I can follow up. We can.
Thank you, Mr. Penn. Great presentation as always. I heard something on the news, even though it's not hurricane related and not climate change related, but it scared really the heck out of me. And I think I should ask this to Andrew. Yesterday in St. Martin, 5 pedestrians walking on the street were struck by lightning. 3 of them severely injured in the hospital. I mean, I have been my whole life afraid of thunderstorms and lightning. And I always look for one manhole to hide in. But this is something that could happen here. I have never heard something so drastic happening with lightning to people.
I am happy you pointed out that much, as it is given the fact with climate change and that we're expecting to have more storms and more severe storms, it simply means that we'll have stronger storms, right? And stronger storms involve a lot more thunderstorm activity, which involves lightning. So I'm happy you brought it out in this setting, and I would like to raise even a question to say, how prepared are we in the terms of the way we build our buildings or even the way we plan events in that sense, you understand? Just something for us to think about going further, just to ensure that previously we probably weren't even considering lightning. So probably what we could also do from DDM standpoint is educate persons that this idea of lightning, the threat could possibly get more while we go into the future.
Thank you. Now since you mentioned it, I remember the country where I used to spend a few years before I moved to the DDM in Germany. Every building, every public building and most of the private buildings, I'm trying to translate the word, have to be outfitted with, it's like a metal rod, a high metal rod that will divert hitting the building if there's a thunderstorm.
Yes.
Have you ever thought about this in Tortola?
Yes. Just to answer your question, I know that even when designing our homes, some of our homes have these grounded rods for that particular reason. And some buildings do have the lightning arresters on. Within the design of the building first, there are a number of things that's going to be placed on that as well. So I know that some of the newer buildings around here, they should have particular type arrestor rods and stuff.
And as a precautionary, when we issue, say for example, or if not us, but if you get an update suggesting that there is going to be thunderstorms, just be mindful that lightning strike is a possibility, so that we could take the necessary precautions.
One question from, thanks for your presentation. I know part of climate change is also rising sea levels, and we've been able to monitor that effect here at DDM. My concern is really with any data so that they're very flat and probably more prone to
I think we have to some degree. It hasn't been done in the form that we would love to. The territory did invest in Type Gauge a few years ago. There's a few years of data from it, but there's still not enough. The aim is to at least make a greater effort to, they also invested in a few more, at least 2 more, greater effort to have those installed, maybe keep them a little bit more, I would say, current in terms of the data that we collect from them. Sad to say most of the data that we rely on in terms of sea level rise comes from the closest gauge that we have to us, which is St. John, US St. John.
Thank you both for your presentation. My question really, in a sense, relates to, I think, what Mr. Penn mentioned about sources of information and the National Hurricane Center and so on. In light of the extremely active hurricane season that has been predicted for this year, what are the additional steps and measures which DDM is implementing in order to keep the public informed in light of that heightened season that we are about to face?
Thank you, Mr. Ferraro. That's a very great question. Over the years, we would have started off with using our website, but even before that, we would have pushed a lot of information via our media channels, ZDVI, and other FM radio stations. As things progressed, we moved into developing apps, which we have two iterations. We had an older version, and we now do have a newer version that persons can download. We moved to using a lot more social media channels. We also moved into using WhatsApp with various groups in terms of providing information as well. What we also went ahead and did is creating a WhatsApp channel, which allows now for a lot more users to subscribe without having to share their personal information or even their the phone number in the event they just wanted to receive information. And therefore, one of the things that we also did was, in light of, again, coming out from where a lot of the broadcast system would have gone down, we seek to acquire a FM broadcast frequency as well. 88.9 is that FM frequency. We also went ahead and purchased a number of mobile FM transmitters that we utilize by ourselves, or even the stations that we have MOUs with, to try and get that information up to them also. And I think the other thing that we have done is, I believe, with the text messaging system, we seek out to have MOUs with the different service providers, in which they were on board and we are allowed to share text messages through their platforms as well. Even though that's a delayed, particular type of medium, the way it operates, it also gives us a little bit more reach as well to be able to provide information.
I'll just ask a follow-up question. The reason why I ask this question is, and you've touched on it coming out of a Maria experience, and of course the hiking season, but I could be wrong, but it seems to me that people are getting their information from many different sources, including certain individuals online who are supposedly weather people who are making predictions, analysis, etc., etc. And they pop up on your phone with regularity, and perhaps the end result of that may be that less attention is being paid to what DDM is putting out there. I don't know, that may not be so. So how are we ensuring that the level of information that we are giving out from DDM to the populace is perhaps a bit more detailed, and perhaps a bit more, detail might not be the right word because some people may not actually be able to understand if you put it in great detail, but more informative and early enough so that people are truly informed of what is happening, especially in the days, the few days, run up to a storm that is pretty much on a direct path to hit the country. Because to me, I like to be told, and I use an expression, if I have to run for the hills, tell me to run for the hills and then it's a puff and nothing happens. I prefer to run to the hills and come back to my house and say everything's good. But I like to be told early enough to run for the hills. Run for the hills is not the right thing because we don't want you to run for the hills, but you understand what I'm saying. How much more information will you be disseminated in terms of analysis, in terms of information that will keep the public informed and the projections as storms are approaching, coming across, etc., etc. That's really what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you again. I'll give something and give you some. One of the things that we've tried to do at least this year is not just provide text-based information, but short bits and pieces of information, sort of in smaller JPEGs, where we get straight to the point to try to tell persons when, what to expect, and what the impacts might be. That's one of the methods that we've tried this year as well. In addition to that, what we've also tried to do with individuals is to maybe do a lot more video type stuff, speaking with young individual stuff, and we did surveys with them. Some of the things that they asked for in terms of information they would like to see. They wanted to see more videos, a lot less paper, which we tried to reach them via those mediums as well. In terms of all the information, because we are still restricted to a point legally, based on issuing watches and warnings, what we've alluded to do is to tailor the information in a way that would get persons to understand that we are going to flood, even though we have not legally told them that we actually will flood. I hope that helps to answer a bit, and I'll allow Andrew to share some also.
In addition to what Mr. Penn just said, what I try to do, because we have a team there at the office that tries to get information out. What we also try to do is when we put this information out, we try to localize it. When you would say you get information from other sources online, it's kind of more general. So what we try to do is we try to make it more localized to say, yes, because they might just say flooding in the northeastern Caribbean. That's a few countries right there. So we're localized to say making Wested based on the tracking of the system or whatever it might be. You might expect some flooding that side. Maybe if it's windy or it's a lot of rain, the areas that we know are prone to landslides, we might highlight those that people can be aware of the hazards that may happen. So that's what we try to do. In regards to try to keep the public informed while not overbearing them at the same time. Because sometimes too much information kind of defeats the purpose as well.
Thank you, gentlemen. We really appreciate you being here and the important work that you do. And please keep us safe and prepared for this season. We give you this as a token of our appreciation for you being here. And we hope that the next time we see you will be about preparedness for next year, not telling us to run for the hills. Thank you so much.